Now I'm sneezing.
Bless you.
Go on air. Okay.
Boggle would be 2 G's.
Boggle would be 2 G.
Oh. We are live.
Well,
I'm trying
remember
to figure out
to
all
wait
the
a second.
pronunciations. No, Andy, no. Going right through it. All right.
Welcome to Turnip Talk.
This is Literary Roadhouse. One short story, once a week. I am Anais.
I'm Gerald.
I'm Andy.
I have a new webcam. So for those of us who watch us, this is the real me. Okay.
And I am shrouded in shadow.
As always.
Yes.
The problem is it's not actually that dark, but I keep wearing very dark, like I'm a little dark with very dark shirts and a beard.
The real problem is you don't have a light in front of you the way that Gerald and I do.
Yeah.
And you need to. This is amateur influencer rookie mistakes, Andy.
Yeah, I know, man. I keep looking at the lights at work and I'm like, oh, I should buy one. And it's like, those cost money.
They're dirt cheap.
They're dirt cheap, yeah.
I think
you
10
can get one.
Well, I only carry the fancy ones in my job.
Well, then go to Amazon and get a non-fancy one.
Yeah, get a dirt cheap one.
Okay. We did read a story this week, though.
Did we?
Yes.
We did. We read Rough Deeds by Annie Proulx. Even though this story has made me feel really insecure about how I pronounce names. So I'm hoping it's Annie Proulx. I'm pretty sure it's Annie Proulx. Okay. So if you haven't read the story yet, there's a link in the description. Go read it, then come back. It's worth it. Sometimes my boyfriend reads stories with me, and this time he did. He really liked it. He kept wanting to talk about it afterwards, even though I was really tired. I wanted to go to bed. He was like, "But what did you think about it?" I'm like, okay. So that's a good sign. So in Rough Deeds, it follows the story of Charles Duquette or Duquette.
Well, we don't know his first name in Rough
We don't know his
Deeds.
name is Charles, but it's attached to a larger novel. It doesn't say it here, but we know it from a greater work that she's doing. Or has she published it yet? I can't remember.
Yeah.
She has, yeah. So he is in New France or Canada, and he used to do fur trading. He just basically takes things from the land and takes it back to the old country. And when we meet him, he is selling wood. He's selling oak that's going to go for building predominantly warships in Europe. And one of his business partners is an Englishman, Dred Peacock, who says to him, "Hey, there's a big opportunity down in New England. You should move down here." They're working out of Boston. They have land up in Maine, setting up townships in quotes, some shady dealings all around. Rivalry begins with we were saying McBogle or McBoogle?
Bogle.
Bogle.
This story makes me very insecure about how to pronounce names. So McBogle.
Not American.
Yeah, so they go up to their land in Maine. They see that there are some thieves up there who have set up their own sawmill and are cutting down trees, and those trees are for them because they're white pines and they're great for shipbuilding. Masts. Exactly, masts, but also planks, I guess.
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. It's great for ships. And so they chase them down. There's a boy who already has a leg injury, so he falls behind, and Duquette just throws a tomahawk at him because why not, and just like gets him in the thigh, and the kid like falls down. An older man looks back. He looks enraged. He's got red hair, and but he leaves. They ultimately leave. They flee by boat or raft down the river. All these sawmills are next to rivers, and then at that time, Duquette's traveling with his friend Faugeron. I don't know. It's another sort of like voyager adventurer who's Duquette's friend / also a business partner. And Forgeron says, "Hey, I'm going to go get raftsmen we're going to steal back all of these logs that they were trying to steal from us. You stay here with the kid." And as Duquette stays there with the child, the boy who's like 14, he had a previous wound from a branch that impaled him, a logging accident. And now he has the tomahawk cut, not an accident. And the infection is spreading. The kid looks like... Huh? What?
Also, somebody cut off his fingers, Anais.
Oh, yeah, they cut off his fingers. That's important. His name
Only
is
one
Duquette.
of them.
And that's just a flesh wound. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
it is just a flesh wound, yes. Duquette feels bad for like the things he didn't do, but doesn't feel bad for the things he did do. So yeah, when he was interrogating the kid, he chopped off one of his fingers, as is necessary when interrogating 14-year-olds.
Right. Well, I don't know if you've ever interrogated a 14-year-old.
Yeah. So the kid who is missing a finger and has a bunch of wounds, he survives the first night, but it doesn't look like that he's going to survive the second night. He keeps begging for water during the day. Duquet does not give it to him. And then at one point, the kid's begging out, crying for help to an owl. And Duquet becomes enraged by this because no one's ever helped him. He had a very squalid, horrible start in life. So he brings the tomahawk down on this kid's head, as one does. Duquet's awful, but like that's what makes this interesting. Eventually, and then he throws the kid's body in the sawmill pit, puts in some timber, lights it on fire, the scaffolding from the sawmill pit. That's how he disposes of the body. Forgeron and the raft men show up and they take their logs back. But what he finds out during all of this is that McBogle is in with some politician, and the seed is planted in his mind that he might want to do a partnership with McBogle, because what you get from reading the story is that it's very tribal and gang-like. Like, it's lawless. Anyone can just cut down trees and they just encroach on each other's turf and fight it out. It's like, it read very like Mafioso, the lumber mill story. And then, so then finally when he decides to do that, he's going to go with Dread Peacock, the Englishman, and Forgeron. They're supposed to go. But then last minute, Dread Peacock's brothers die, and he's left the family estate. So he immediately stops being a colonialist who wants independence from England, from the crown, and he's like, gotta go home, bye. So he leaves to go be a wealthy guy, and Forgeron gets sick, and I don't know if does he die. Basically he's bedridden. I don't know if it definitively says he dies. He's bedridden, about to die. Yeah. So Duquet is like, you know what? I'm gonna go do this on my own, even though he was trying to amass a group of people because McBogle and his men are known to be dangerous. He goes. There's some long, beautiful passages as he goes through very harsh, wintry forest, very primal landscape. Finally, he gets to McBogle's sawmill, where he expects to find him. And who is it? It's the guy who turned around when he tomahawked the kid, presumably the kid's father. You find out, yes, McBogle is the kid's father, and he wants revenge. And Duquet is killed by sawmill.
All right.
Sod. Okay, that's my on-the-fly summary.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you guys think of this story? Gerald, what did you think of it?
I really loved it. I like her writing anyway, but I think she's such a clever writer because she provides enough detail without overloading you. So she builds this world that none of us know or have experienced of, but you feel like you know it, so you feel like you're in that situation. So I love that. And characters, yes, it's funny that she creates characters that are your sort of sympathies jump from one to the other, and that's a very sort of clever thing to do. So I enjoyed reading it very much. Yep, it's very good.
Mm-hmm. Andy?
I also enjoyed reading it, and this probably requires qualification, but I love cowboy stories. And when you said, oh, but this one's not a Western, you were correct. But when I was explaining it to Karina as an amazing Western story, she's like, well, when is it? I was like, well, it's in New England in the 1700s. She's like, well, that's several hundred years and several hundred miles, not a Western. But it's, something about French lumberjack in New France is the same thing as pioneer settlers in Texahoma. I like that thing. That's the thing that I like the most, and this story was it. But I don't know, it also has like the same sort of complex sort of morality, right? Of the, I don't know, frontier morality, right? I don't know. It's real good. Because Duquette's not a nice man, but he's sympathetic, but then like he does, straight up murder some kids. So that's not great.
Yeah.
But and they're all taking, I mean, he's taking these trees off the land because he decides he wants to take them off the land, and then he gets all uppity because somebody else is taking
Right.
his trees, and
You're trying to kidnap what I've rightfully stolen.
Yes, well, and this is the story of Britain. How dare you? Yeah.
I agree. I also thought, even though it's literally not a Western, literally not about cowboys, it had the same sort of energy. It had the same energy, that very sort of masculine, the lawlessness, the sort of, you're fighting as much other lawless cowboy-like types as you are the elements, which is great. Yeah, I agree. It had cowboy energy without being about cowboys at all. So, I mean, in a way, it felt very Andy Proulx, even if it wasn't in Wyoming. It still felt like, oh, okay, right. This is what she writes. This is what she does really well.
Yeah. It is funny when you shared the story a couple of weeks ago now, and I just sort of quickly looked through it, and Annie said, and Andy said, oh, it's not a cowboy story. I thought, but I saw settlers was the word that leapt out of the story. So I skimmed through it. I thought, well, it might be something similar.
Yep.
And how long was this, Gerald? You always measure every word count. I never do, but
I do. 4,800 words.
It flew by.
Yeah.
It really flew by. That's not that long anyway, but it really did fly by. It was really engrossing. Okay, so let's jump into the craft a little bit more. So let's actually start with the writing, because I feel like this is one of those stories where, at least in my reading of it, the skill in actually writing it did a lot of the work. Like, really, it's just the way that words were arranged on a page, what she chose to describe and when. And Gerald, you were saying in your overview that you really liked it for that reason. Can you dig into that a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to home in on, to extract and isolate. But you're in the hands of a very skillful writer when you're immersed in the environment, even though it's totally alien. And now, as a general rule, I sort of I dislike historical stories. I always like contemporary stories. It's a different country, a different continent. But I understood it, and the way, I don't know, the way she chooses words. There's no highfalutin words. There's no words where you have to scratch your head or look it up. It's a straightforward, easy read. But there's a lot of detail, but it never gets in the way of the plot. And it's she's such a good writer. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And did you have anything to add to that?
Not as such, but one of the things I like is how the history came through in relevant chunks, right? Mm-hmm. There's no like, the year was this and the settlers were this, and like, right? It's like a little bit. It was New France. Here's what the Iroquois called it, and moved on. And later, it's like, and this year he was leasing this, and it's like, okay, so that's our setting. And then but now they're in this other tavern, and they get to why the first tavern burned down only by mentioning the name of the tavern they're sitting in right now, right? Just all the. It's skillfully done rather than dumped on me. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And two of the things that really jumped out at me about the way that it was written, one, it's that long passage where Duquet is going on his own, right? Like, first of all, we can get into Duquet as a character in a second, but he is going through a forest that is inherently dangerous in and of itself. Forget all of the like mafioso lumbermen in there, because the way that the forest was described, even though I've been to those forests, I have hiked throughout New England, right? I am in this area, and I feel like I know the forests of Maine. I've been up there, but yet it felt different. It felt like something lost. It felt like this forest was inherently different before colonizers came and used it for profit. Like, it felt like there was pieces of it where I was like, oh, I've definitely seen that, but he's seen this every few paces. And like, I've seen it like once in a blue moon. You know what I mean? Like, just the level of like complexity and how primal the forest is. I really enjoyed that part of it. And the other thing, it's Proulx's dedication to the dialogue, the way that these characters spoke. You know how sometimes when there's historical fiction in the 1700s, there's a sort of stilted way that modern writers tend to write that language, right? We're like, okay, we're in historical fiction time, so people use, whom more, right? Like there's just like a few little adjustments you make, and that's how you signal where you are in time. I felt like this was genuinely well researched in the way that men in that time spoke to each other. It was still rough. There was still a lot of swearing, but in a way that felt of that time, right? Like the first time that Dread Peacock and Duquet meet at the first inn before it burned down, the way they're talking to each other just felt really like I was transported to a different time and place that we don't actually see it a lot done in that way. I really enjoyed the way that the dialogue was handled. Yeah, it was great. And even the references, whenever you were close to the way that Duquet thinks, the way that he thinks felt so specific to how somebody of that time might have thought. Like when he's thinking of Forgeron, he calls him a Jonah, right? Like, yeah, there was just, I just loved it, who brings foul weather wherever he goes. Like, okay, Anyway, I thought there was just a lot of attention to detail that really sucked me in, and just a lot of work that went into that I just like want to tip my hat to. And I want to read the whole novel in that style. Yeah,
and I think if you're writing dialogue in a modern voice, there's a lot of shortcuts. There's a lot of contractions. A lot of sort of colloquialisms. There isn't any in this. It's all very proper English, which makes it seem a little bit different. So you're never caught up by thinking that it doesn't read well. It always reads well, but it's like you garçon, talk up, or I cut first your fingers, then your balls, and it's that cut first is the sort of continental way of creating a sentence. But it doesn't. You don't stutter over it. You are aware that they are in effect talking a foreign language to them.
I actually want to read this bit of dialogue. It's when Dread Peacock is trying to get Duquet to resettle, to go down to Boston. He says, Duquet, it is past time for you to consider shifting your business operation to the colonies. Right? So it all sounds very formal. And then Duquet says, oh, I think on it. I think on it often. I am half a mind to do so, sir. And then he goes, damn, sir. Like, it is quite time you acted. Finish with thinking and act. Every day those poxy horse sons of millmen push into the forest and gain control over the land. In Maine, there are countless white pine mash trees and lesser pines to be used for tar and pitch. You know there's a great market for these if you can get them on ship bound for Scotland, England, or even Spain and Portugal. Like, I just love that, right? Like, damn, sir, those poxy horse sons. Like, cool. I love this. Just, yeah. Poxy horse sons is everywhere throughout this story, and you know what? Bring it back. I mean, yeah. So why don't we talk about Duquet a little bit more, or Duquet? I haven't decided which is a correct pronunciation. But so yeah, what did you guys think of him, Andy? What did you think of Duquet aside from he kills children?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even including the kid was dying of that infection.
It was not a mercy kill. Do not trick yourself into believing it was a mercy kill, because it was not.
You cannot do that.
It
was explicitly not a mercy kill. He was not giving. Yeah,
no,
come
he
on.
killed him because he was angry and annoyed. But like
over nothing.
If he hadn't, he would have been dead by morning.
In part because
of his dad's bad medical skills.
And the tomahawk cut and the finger. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, man. The infection had black lines going up to his groin.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it was bad. The infection was bad, but
fatally bad. He was dying.
Yeah. But maybe some food and water and getting him to a doctor might have helped some. Maybe he would have lost a leg but survived.
Yeah.
No, not if it got up to his groin.
Anyway, continue. We're talking about Duquet. We're not talking about the survival rates of
blood vessels. They would have had to amputate.
Move on from the groin.
Down.
Yeah. So Duquet, what did you think of him? What did you think of him? But describe his character. Like,
right, he's a scrapper, right? He's clawing for everything he's got, and he doesn't know how to stop clawing. So at some point, he sort of got on top of the heap, but he still thinks he's a scrapper, right? Like he's got an anglicized Duke and Sons business, right? But he's still fighting with his stores in New France and also his stores in the colony, and he's playing both sides. Like he's actually by the end could probably not have to fight over these couple of pine things with the Scotsman, but he can't not do that.
Yeah.
And that, but that's also what got him where he is scrapping like that.
Yeah, right. you see this, not obviously nothing like this, but you see this often in biographies of entrepreneurs and people that start off by scrapping, by doing whatever they need to do, and it seems like they can't then stop. They don't get to a certain point where they say, I've got enough money now, I can sit back and relax. But they keep on and they keep on, and that's what makes them the people they are. So when Duquet is heading off to sort out McBogle, he can't not go. He can't say, oh well, I've got no men with me, so I'll just put it off for a bit. No, he has to go and sort it out. It's it's like a thing with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that his crappiness ultimately is his undoing. There's a lot of hubris in the story, because I mean, Duquet knows how dangerous it is, because he's the one he and Dread Peacock are like, we need to get like a band of men with us. We need ruffians for this. Like, this is again like two gangs meeting in the woods. Like, it's just so gang-like. And then Dread Peacock no longer cares about the colonies because now he's a rich man over in the old country.
Does he have a title too?
Yeah, probably some like lower house title thing.
Well, yeah, he's got a title.
And Forgeron gets sick, and Duquet decides to go anyway without any backup. And just the trip to see McBogle is dangerous because he takes a canteen of coffee that he's going to drink cold, because just to make a campfire out there is dangerous. Like, it's so dangerous that you're not even going to heat your coffee every day. You're going to have cold coffee from a canteen. You need to sneak around because you're afraid of getting caught by either competing lumber gangs or natives who are pissed off about what's happened to the forest, or scalpers, right? There's like so many dangers that already makes it dangerous to go alone, and your destination, is dangerous. But he is so overconfident and so sure of his own success because he has already survived so much to that point. Like, there were so many times where he probably should have died before then, that he thinks he can just go on his own and do this, and no, he can't. And he ultimately is hoisted by his own petard a little bit, his own sawmill, his own captured sawmill. Nice. So, I mean,
by his own sawmill.
Yeah. Actually, it's not clear if that specific sawmill was taken by McBogle or an original McBogle. It might have been an original McBogle, but it doesn't matter at this point, right? The lines on this turf war are so fluid. So yeah, it's
you live by the saw, you die by the saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's quite funny when Duquet is talking to Dread Peacock. And Dread Peacock says, my responsibility to my family and to the estate, I have to leave at once. And Duquet says, scratchy New England colonist, he thought, and you find old England, the way a tree's bark might hide the inner rot. And I just think there's such a lovely observation there that you get all these the colonial people, but as soon as a chance comes to go back home and be a rich landowner.
But what I loved about that is we already know enough about Duquet at that point. Like, that is a beautiful observation. It's great. I love that sentence. And on top of that, if Duquet were in Dread Peacock's shoes, he'd make the exact same decision. He is not a politically minded, for the colonies, independence guy at all. He is here just for the money. Right,
because he's a French citizen.
Well, that too, but also Canada also fought for independence, right?
Well, but like he's already selling selling his ships to Scotland,
Oh,
which will go to fight France.
Sure, but it's not like he won't. Exactly. Yes, he's a Frenchman who. This turned off, but who is fighting. Who is giving wood to people who are going to come and attack him. Basically, like at some point, those warships are going to come around, but it doesn't matter because he's just here for the money. He doesn't care about any of that. Yeah. Anyway,
and it's and he said about right at the start when he was talking, when he collects high quality firewood, and the only way he could make it pay is with shipping cargo coming back, and they said without the sure promise of a rich return cargo, he thought, let the Parisians freeze for all he cared. It just whatever it takes, I don't care. Yeah, anything that's got some money in it.
Yeah, he has no higher values. This keeps turning off. But yeah, he has no higher values, and that's super readily apparent throughout. In case you ever think he has any value, he does not.
Also, Dread Peacock's a great name.
It is. It's a very good name.
Yes. Peacock.
All right. Anything else?
Follow up for that. Just
anything else we want to add?
I don't think so. It's just there's nothing. There's no sort of apart from the as we've talked about the sort of the characterization of the characters themselves and the setting. There's no sort of subtext to it. There's no other than live by the sword, die by the sword, that sort of thing. And if you go and attack a Scotsman in a forest, you're likely to. Yeah, you're likely to end up worse off. So, but that didn't stop me enjoying it so much. It's just a really good, a rattling good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Are we good to rate it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I'm coming in at a 6. I really liked it. I thought it was really. It made me want to read the whole book. That's what more can you ask for?
It did make me want to read the novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was torn between like a 5.5 and a 6 because normally a 6 is I'm like shouting from the rooftops, everybody go read this. I'm not quite there with this, not because there's anything wrong with it at all, just because in a way, like I think anyone who reads it will like it, but it's not necessarily like a transformative experience. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily doing anything super new, but it's very good. I don't think anyone's going to read this and not like it. So I think it's good enough for us.
Thank you. Yeah, that's sort of clarified it in my mind that it's a 5.5 because it's not transformative. It's a great story. Really enjoyed it, but once you've finished it, it's gone. You're not going to be thinking about it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to come in at a 5, but I think for similar reasons, I'm going to give it a 6 because, right, I don't necessarily feel changed and moved by this story, but I do want to read. Was it Barkskins? Yeah, I want to read the heck out of that. So, that's a 6.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So, Gerald, what are we reading next week?
Next week we are reading. It's from Granta, which is always a bit can be a bit dodgy.
We've had great stories in Granta.
We have had great stories.
We've also been led astray.
Strange things from this is called The Great Indian Tea and Snakes by Kritika Pandey, and it was the winner of the 2020 Commonwealth Prize because we have Commonwealth, That's
okay, but before you go, share your thoughts on Duquet or Duquette's pronunciation in our Facebook group, the Literary Roadhouse Readers. Help others read stories about ambitious, greedy, rough frontiermen who orchestrate their own undoing by leaving a review on iTunes and supporting our lumber trade and podcast expenses at patreon.com/literary roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the profiteering Englishman in your life. Until next time, read a good story.